Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 Max Wasserman Forum, Altered Access. I'm Paul Ha, the director of the List Visual Arts Center, and I want to thank all those who are with us here in person, but also to thank all those who are with us remotely. Welcome. My visual descriptor is that I am a middle-aged Asian Korean American male, about 5'6" tall and average weight, with shortish black hair, and am wearing black horn-rimmed glasses. The List Visual Arts Center, the Contemporary Art Museum at MIT, hosts every 2 years a 2-day gathering of our community with presentation and roundtable discussions from participating scholars, artists, educators, art professionals, and leading thinkers on a topic that's chosen for the forum. The Max Wasserman Forum on Contemporary Art was established in memory of Max Wasserman, MIT class of 1935, and who was one of the founding members of the Council for the Arts here at MIT. The public forum was endowed by the generosity of the late Jane Wasserman, and her wish was that we all get together to think on, to address, and have open discussions on current issues affecting contemporary art. And I know that Max and Jean's son, Peter Wasserman, along with his wife, Alberta Gershel, is with us. I want to welcome them. I want to thank the Wassermans and the Gershel family for their continued support of this program and this vital forum, more importantly, to actively participate in List Center's programs. The topic for this year's forum is access, and we titled the forum Altered Access. We at the List Center chose this topic for a couple of reasons. First, during COVID, all of us, for a prolonged period, did not have physical access to museums and other cultural institutions and their activities. Like all museums, during the first part of the pandemic, the List Center took up the challenge to create new digital programs and content so that we could continue to connect with our audiences. We did virtual walkthroughs, Zoom sessions with artists and curators, and I think we even had a couple of Zoom cocktail parties. Our stats show that our website, as it was true for many other cultural institutions, had huge increases in web traffic. We wanted to dramatically increase the content on our website for you to see more, so we decided to digitize our entire archive and to post it. And we took on this huge task. We became aware that in what we posted, we need to add certain features so that we could widen its accessibility. We added alt text to all our still images. We also provided audio transcripts for all the videos on our site. And our digital content became more accessible to a larger community. And as we started to discuss what the topic should be for this Wasserman's Forum, we at the List Center was reminded of the big learning curve we had, the changes we had to make for our digital content to become more welcoming and accessible to our wider audience. And as we begin to open our physical building to our audience, we asked, what can we take from what we learned to make online content more accessible? What can we learn and to do to make our physical building accessible to all? As we open our doors to the general public for physical visits, we wanted to take this opportunity to create a forum to discuss current disability discourse within the arts and museum practices. And we wanted to learn how we can make our museum more accessible to you. I want to thank all my coworkers at the List Center who does an incredible job of creating exhibitions, programs, and all the content that goes on our website and in our galleries. And thank you to the List Center's advisory committee members and to all our donors. But I'd like to especially thank Emily Garner for taking the lead in creating and coordinating this Wasserman Forum. Also to Elizabeth Ponce, our public programs coordinator, who also helped enormously. I know you both had to solve many problems so that we all could have a seamless experience attending this forum, physically and remotely. So thank you. I also want to thank all the participants, the speakers, and moderators of this year's forum. For tonight, I'd like to thank Emily Barker for speaking, and to thank the keynote speaker, Park MacArthur, who the List Center had the privilege of exhibiting in 2017 in the exhibition An Inventory of Shimmers, curated by Henrietta Holdish. I also want to recognize Azra Aksamija and the Art, Culture, and Technology program for helping us to sponsor this space for this year's program. Thank you for lending us where you create. And thank you all for being here with us in person and remotely. And now here's Emily Garner, List Visual Arts Center Senior Manager, Campus and Public Programs.
Well, thank you, Paul. That was lovely. And I just also want to welcome and reiterate a warm welcome to both tonight's in-person and virtual attendees. As Paul said, I'm the Emily Garner, the Senior Manager of Campus and Public Programs at the List Visual Arts Center and lead organizer of this year's Wasserman Forum, Altered Access. I'm a 5'1", short, white female with mid-length blonde hair that's pulled back, also with dark-rimmed glasses and wearing all black cowl neck. I want to continue in expressing our gratitude for additional members of our Wasserman Forum team. Thank you to Debbie Arment, Jasmine Valesco, and Kim Enos for joining us this weekend as the live ASL interpreters during the course of the forum. Thank you to John Prendergast, Kyle Paradis, Doug Linford, Mark Mendez, members of the MIT Audiovisual team, and Kevin Tierney, Rod Lindheim, Don Morton from MIT Video Productions, and creating the webcast of this event to enable virtual attendees for this event and connecting our live transcribers for the event. I also like to thank MIT graduate student Vanessa Sun, who's in the geophysics department, who has outfitted this space with 2 CR2 filters and air purifiers to make this space as clean as possible as we tested out earlier this week. Thank you to my colleagues at the List Center for their support of this program, including Tim Lloyd, Kristen Johnson, Jameson Johnson, Chloe Tomasetta, Suzie Allen, Natalie Bell, Paul Ha. But none of this would have come together without my program partner, Elizabeth Ponce, who is one of the most amazing people I've had the pleasure to work with and has devoted countless hours to the organization and communication and multiple details that go into staging a 2-day conference for a range of artists and practitioners. Exactly 1 year ago today, I was able to shed the back brace I lived in for 4 months due to an accident that caused me to fracture my pelvis, my spine, and my wrist. During these 4 months, I understood what it meant to be simultaneously frustrated by and grateful for the support systems I had. I understood what it meant to spend 20 hours a week in medical appointments, waiting rooms, physical therapy sessions, the pain that it caused to get in and out of the car, the pain that I endured to attend my daughter's new school opening event when I should have been in bed, but didn't want to miss out on something important to my family. I understand that I only had a brief blip of embodiment of physical pain that that many here have to endure every day. I understand that it's truly a struggle for many of our panelists, moderators, and attendees to be with us for this forum. I want to thank everyone for coming here to share their thoughts, their stories, their expertise, their support, and most of all, for making this event worth attending. Altered Access will center voices in the arts and disability practice through this evening's opening event with Emily Barker and Park MacArthur, and continue tomorrow in 3 panels to consider aspects of digital access and spatial design and how museums can serve as places of healing. Let us collectively consider innovative approaches that implement accessible, inclusive practices, which every organizational institutional model can apply in developing a fresh look at how disabled audiences, artists, and museums can work together. The content shared during this forum can be emotional and difficult to listen to and talk about, but the purpose of this forum is to consider where we are at this point of time in regards to disability practice in the arts and inspire creative thoughtfulness to all of our work and human engagements. So for tonight's opening program, Emily Barker will look closely at building what doesn't harm. And then following Barker, Park MacArthur would join us remotely for a presentation. Emily Barker is an artist living in Los Angeles and born in 1992 in San Diego, grew up in Georgia and studied at the School of Art Institute of Chicago. They showed in the 2022 Whitney Biennial and Museum für Moderne Kunst, Frankfurt, and recently had their second solo show at the Carlisle Pecker Gallery. They've given artist talks at the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York, University of California, Los Angeles, the Royal Academy of Art, London, Otis College of Art and Design, Los Angeles, and others. They have been highlighted in over 30 pieces of press and featured in Dazed 100, Hyperallergics 2021, Culture Shifters, Vogue, and a documentary on their practice for PBS's Artbound by Dolly Lee. So with that, I would like to welcome Emily Barker to the stage.
Thank you so much, Emily, for that introduction and for all of the work it required to get me in this building today. It is an absolute incredible challenge to travel, but also just to navigate any built environment that exists in our current society. And it doesn't matter where you are. The world is not built for wheelchair users. And I'll introduce myself with a visual description. I don't know how tall I am in a wheelchair, but I'm pretty short. And I have red hair. I'm wearing a green mask and gray pants. And yeah, I'm pale, very pale. And that's about it for that. But yeah, I just want to thank all of you for being here. That's a huge step, just the fact that we have an audience of people who care about this subject now is really meaningful to me. It's very surreal to go on before Park MacArthur, who's an artist that while I was in school very much influenced the way I thought about contemporary art and conceptual art as it relates to disability. And my own practice is very much shaped by my experience. Historically, artists make work about what their lives are like. So male artists, women, and like lusting after women has been a huge thing. But for me, as much as I like to have fun, my consciousness is now completely formed by my experience of using a wheelchair in the built environment and being a part of a segregated class of citizens who nowhere in the world that I have been have space that is built for us. And we have to, our cost of living is thousands of more dollars to navigate a space that's not built for us. And we often have to pay more money to have less access. For instance, the flight over here, I need certain accommodations to fly so I don't get a blood clot. And I'm paying more money, MIT is paying more money, thank you, for me to fly, but I also can't use the bathroom in a plane. So I can't use a bathroom, and I also have to leave the plane last, even if I have a connecting flight. So my life is constantly being lived in a certain amount of anxiety and fear due to the built environment and due to the lack of thoughtfulness that goes into all interactions that we have, because if something doesn't create a profit incentive for companies, it will not be considered, which actually doesn't even make sense because disabled people are a fourth of the population and we spend billions of dollars a year as a group of people who need an extensive amount of care, mobility devices, accommodations, and we create an entire industry based off of those things that has been used to exploit us. So that's, for instance, care homes are completely funded by the government, but we should be able to get the care that we need within our own homes, and it shouldn't be an industry that creates profit for companies while we're, and especially during COVID, killed in these care homes because it's not properly set up for people with autoimmune diseases or who are sick. So every single interaction within our economic system exists to exploit people for their basic needs. And the entire built environment is built for people who can walk. And even the ADA does not create is not thoughtful enough, and there's too many loopholes for it to be effective when it comes to navigating the world in a wheelchair or with a walker or an extensive list of other disabilities. And for me, I know that force relations, or the sort of consciousness that every person has, which is very limited if you don't live with a physical disability, creates a sort of standard or norm and a set of stigmas and stereotypes that create a circular enforcement of ableism and inaccessibility. And ableism is the idea that disabled people's lives are less valuable than able-bodied people's lives. And the really sad reality is that, or not sad, but sad due to the lack of consciousness around this, is that, you know, any moment you could become disabled, but that is not why we should have a world that is built for everyone and every single body type that exists, because access issues also affect mothers with strollers, children, elderly people, people who are temporarily disabled. Access is something that makes life easier for everyone, and an accessible environment is an environment that is often then sold to us for a lot more money due to the extra space that exists. So even if there's an apartment building in New York that's built with a certain amount of accessible apartments, those apartments will cost more than the regular apartments because that extra space is considered a luxury. And disabled people in the US who need caregivers and Medicaid to exist, and who are not allowed to work to get on those programs, are forced into poverty and have to spend less than $675 for rent in order to get caregiving and Medicaid in this country. And there's so many things like this, these horrific systems, that when you become disabled, it's not a medical problem anymore, it's a systemic problem, it's a societal problem, because it's insult to injury, it's salt on a wound. Something terrible happens to you, and you're living in a lot of pain or with a disease or paralyzed. But what I've found in the past 10 years of this experience is that the real threat is the systems that exist currently all over the world that exploit disabled people for our needs and continue to deny us the access that is necessary for us to exist in space every day. And that's what my work is about. This current, let's see if I can. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much. This was my first solo show at Murmurs Gallery in 2018. This is a rug I made with IV tubing and copper wires for people who walk to navigate what grass or carpet would be like for me. Just 30 minutes ago, I was trying to navigate plush carpet in the hotel, which exists in every single hallway, and my smart drive wasn't cooperating, and it threw me into the wall because it got stuck on the carpet. So these sort of like, these structural things that no one else but someone in a wheelchair would have to deal with are constant. There isn't a second of my life where I'm not accommodating space built for people who can walk, and where it isn't a threat to my existence, whether that's a sidewalk that is broken and messed up, a driveway that is too steep and can cause my wheelchair to tip over. There's not a single 10 feet of space that is built with the reality of someone in a wheelchair's existence in mind. And that's really stressful and unfortunate. Even, for instance, in this building and in all buildings, I can't see my face in the mirrors that are currently installed. And this is there's just a constant reminder, there's a door ledge that's too big, and I wish I could just take my consciousness and share it with everyone else so that there was this kind of collective understanding, because I think that understanding needs to exist in order for policies to change and in order for people to no longer accept what this experience has been built for us like. And historically, disabled people, the whole eugenics argument, it doesn't make sense at this point it's never made sense, but when you look back historically, you'll find a lot of disabled people who were taken care of by their communities to a better extent than disabled people are taken care of now by our communities. And I think that's very interesting when you explore the historical implications of disability, that no one in pre-civilization would tell disabled people that they could only have less than $1,000 in the bank in order to receive Medicaid and caregiving from their community, in order to receive health care and Medicaid from their community. The laws that exist surrounding disability are very, very violent. And I made this piece about that. This is death by 8,675 paper cuts. This is a stack of my medical billing from 2012 to 2015. It's not a complete stack. I think all my medical billing would take up a lot more space. I'm at almost $2 million from all my surgeries and from an accident. And I received a bill which was also in the Museum of Modern Art in Frankfurt, but I don't think we have a photo of here. And that it's a bill from Northwestern Hospital for $506,000 that I got when I was 19 years old. And that was just from 3 months in the hospital. So this system was built to exist like this. The systems aren't broken, they exist to exploit us, and we're the only developed country that doesn't have access to free healthcare, which, our healthcare system is awful. I got COVID multiple times and refused to go to the hospital because I knew if I was in the hospital, I would just probably die due to neglect, because I've had such awful experiences being hospitalized and have been so neglected after surgeries. But we can no longer accept these. We can no longer act ignorant and accept these conditions to live under. It's not working. And I know everyone struggles in life, so there's a certain amount of challenges that able-bodied people face, and the reality is those challenges are still the same ones that disabled people are facing every day, and it's compounded on top of all of these other things. So in all of the ways that everyone thinks that their life is difficult, disabled people are also faced with an amazing set of challenges that are created by the healthcare system, that are created by austerity programs in different countries, that are created by people's attitudes towards disabled people. And there's a lot of nuance within this community and what the needs are. And for me, it is a challenge to go to a Costco to get dog food and park in the parking lot because I need 5 feet of space to get my lift out. And I have to wait a certain amount of time while other people with placards are able to park in a regular space. And it's just, there needs to be a collective care that doesn't currently exist in a significant way for wheelchair users to navigate the world easily. I was on an airplane a few hours ago, and the flight attendant told me I needed to choose when I traveled between the parts of my wheelchair that had to go in the overhead compartment and my carry-on bag. She basically told me I was taking up too much space with the components of my wheelchair that needed to be stored away, and that I couldn't have a personal carry-on bag and take up that much space. And these sort of interactions that I experience daily create a sort of frustration that I know every disabled person is dealing with, or I don't know, like I don't have care in the way that I would need to navigate the built environment, and I think that would make my life easier. But I'll be rolling down the street with my friend, and then someone will say that he's a really good person for just being next to me. And so no matter what, and this happened last week, so no matter what sort of success I get doing these shows and showing my work or giving this talk, my experience is still one that is completely dehumanizing on a daily basis. And that requires every single person to decide to care and not continue these sorts of, this sort of idea that disabled people are a burden or should be excluded or accept the way that disabled people are treated. Especially during COVID, I predicted the outcome of this situation and what ended up happening before it even happened, but we really saw that collectively people do not care about the well-being of others, and most people. And I got COVID early on wearing a mask, goggles, and gloves at the gym because my immune system doesn't work. And it's an amazing blessing to be here right now and to speak with you all, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order for disabled people to be able to exist in a way with any dignity currently. And this piece is a kitchen that is built to scale for ambulatory people, how I experience my kitchen counters. So it's exploring how something as mundane as a kitchen that I have to pay as much money as you do to use is something rendered useless to me. And that's a metaphor for the way I experience the entire built environment. And the idea of standards and norms is something that was created so that things could be easily manufactured at a mass scale cheaply. And this sort of industrialization of space and this reproduction of inaccess, there's no way currently in the world that we live in now to get out of it without an extensive amount of personal wealth. But even if you have a lot of money as a disabled person, I've noticed that doesn't make your sidewalks accessible. That doesn't mean when you fly you can use the bathroom. That doesn't mean that anything changes as you navigate the rest of the built environment. So I'm really trying to confront people and ask all of us if we should keep living in a world where the worst thing that can happen to you is you become paralyzed and you have to use a wheelchair because it's unnecessary. This is a structural problem. It's not a problem with my body. There's no way to make, disabled people shouldn't have to be fixed in order to have a world that works for us, because the reality is the world can change, but disabled people are still going to exist no matter what. This is a memorial. This is my most recent show in LA, and this piece is a memorial to all of the disabled people who have been murdered by their caregivers and who have died due to insurance denials, medical neglect, and systemic violence. And I just want people to change their ideas of what disability is and ask themselves if they truly value our existence, and if maybe everyone decided that these things needed to change, then the policy would. And given what's happening in America right now, which I can't even, I don't know how much hope I have for these things, given that we're completely getting rid of rights of so many different people. And I would just be really, it would be really nice if in 20 years some of these policies could change so that we're not living in a sense of fear all of the time due to the power dynamics that exist. And I think that this is a really good step. The fact that I'm here right now is amazing. I can't believe it. And it's really meaningful to be able to participate in a conversation through my art to share with you all this. But there's so much more I could talk about. And I think in every single moment, in every single day, people don't realize how privileged they are in navigating space and navigating systems that exist to, make their lives somewhat more livable. And yeah, I'm happy that everyone is watching this right now. And I really would like if you could read other posts on my Instagram or read interviews that I've done, because there's a lot that I can't share within this time period. My current project is a wheelchair accessible RV that solves all of these problems, because I can't find an apartment to live in that works for my body under my SSI amount. So if anyone here would like to help me with different projects, please reach out to me. I'm doing a lot all of the time, and I really need help. So if there's anyone who is moved by what I'm saying, please reach out. And yeah, I think that's basically it. But thank you.